In May 2011, 6-year-old Timmothy Pitzen vanished. His mother checked him out of school for what looked like a surprise road trip. Theme parks, zoos, happy snapshots along the way. 3 days later she was found dead in a motel room, her wrists cut, a note beside her body: "Timothy is safe, with someone who will care for him. You will never find him." No one has seen him since. No one knows who has him. No one knows why she did it. Police have chased disturbing leads, chilling false sightings, and an unbelievable wave of theories, but the truth has remained buried for over a decade. Did she hand him to a stranger? Did she hide him somewhere? Or is the real story far more terrifying than anyone imagines? May 11, 2011 began like any other ordinary Wednesday morning. In Aurora, Illinois, 6-year-old Timothy James "Tim" Pitzen bounded off his father's Jeep, into kindergarten at Greenman Elementary, his bright Spider-Man backpack swinging behind him. His dad, James, waved goodbye, never expecting this to be the last normal moment. But at 8:10 a.m., something eerie and disturbing interrupted routine. Timothy's mother, Amy Fry-Pitzen, quietly appeared at drop-off and, without telling anyone, signed him out, mentioning a vague family emergency. Her calm demeanor would strike investigators as creepy, but at the time, no alarm bells rang. Between then and 10 a.m., she dropped their car at a repair shop. As she left it for service, the repair shop employee drove mother and son to Brookfield Zoo. They returned at 3 p.m., retrieved the car, and made their way north, checking into Key Lime Cove, an indoor waterpark resort in Gurnee, Illinois, that first evening. On May 12, Amy and Timothy continued their journey, heading to Wisconsin Dells, where they spent the night at the Kalahari Resort. Surveillance caught them at the checkout line of the waterpark resort the next morning, Timothy apparently oblivious to the gruesome secrets that would unfold. Meanwhile, back home, Timothy's father was growing frantic. He had arrived at school to pick up Tim, only to learn the boy had already been checked out. Amy was nowhere to be found. Calls went unanswered. Panic set in, and he reported his wife and son missing to Aurora police. No Amber Alert was issued. Officially, no crime had yet taken place. On May 13, the day that would mark the edge of a twisted mystery, Amy and Timothy were again captured on surveillance footage. This time they were leaving the Kalahari Resort at 10 a.m., a mother holding her son's hand in the checkout queue. Later that afternoon, Amy made several phone calls from an area near Sterling, about 80 miles west of Aurora, telling relatives that everything was fine. In the background, Tim's voice could faintly be heard. "I'm hungry," he whispered. But she never called her husband. Then, suspense deepened. At 7:25 p.m. she appeared alone, not with Tim, at a Family Dollar in Winnebago where she purchased pen, paper, and envelopes. By 8 p.m. she was seen again at a nearby convenience store. At 11:15 p.m. she checked into Rockford Inn in Rockford, Illinois. Surveillance shows her alone. Then, silence. On May 14, 2011, a maid discovered her body in the motel room. Amy had taken her life, through an overdose and deep cuts to her wrists and neck. A note lay nearby: "Tim is somewhere safe with people who love him and will care for him. You will never find him." She even apologized for the mess she had created. Everything afterwards spiraled downward in dead ends and chilling uncertainty. Search parties combed the areas surrounding Sterling and Rock Falls. Over 70 volunteers worked tirelessly, but without a trace. Investigators kept looking for clues. Amy's car was examined. Layers of dirt and grass hinted she'd driven off-road to secluded areas. Her phone was later found near a highway ditch. Blood was found in her SUV, but tests revealed it might just have been from Timothy's nosebleed. Over the years, dozens of false sightings surfaced. One in 2019 involved a teenager in Kentucky claiming to be Timothy. FBI and DNA tests confirmed it was a hoax. Through it all, the family clung to the cryptic note, believing firmly that Amy would not have harmed her son. Instead, some theorize she left him with someone she trusted. Her Aunt Jen speculates it might have been a premeditated illegal adoption, perhaps to a religious group. Others, including Timothy's grandmother, worry he may be living in a remote Mormon commune, cut off from the world and his true identity. Now, over a decade later, this haunting mystery filled with unexpected twists and believable secrets, haunts not just the Pitzen family, but anyone who hears Timothy's story. Timothy James Pitzen was not just a name on a missing poster. He was a little boy with a shy smile that seemed to bloom when he felt safe, a deep love for swimming, and a fascination with anything fast, from toy race cars to real roller coasters. At 6 years old, he was curious, energetic, and full of questions that would tumble out in rapid fire. His laugh could bounce across a room and pull others into his orbit without him even trying. He lived in Aurora, Illinois with his parents James and Amy. His father Jim described him as his little shadow, the kind of son who wanted to be wherever his dad was, whether that meant fixing something in the garage or watching sports on TV. Amy, his mother, was vibrant and social. She had a smile that lit up her own pictures, but behind it, those close to her say there was a fragility, an emotional weight she carried quietly. She adored her son. Friends recall how she would plan elaborate outings for him, trips to the zoo to amusement parks to special events, wanting every moment to feel like an adventure. Yet in her marriage cracks had formed. There were arguments, separations, reconciliations, and the looming shadow of possible divorce. Those tensions between Amy and Jim were no secret to those close to the couple. While Jim was steady, often quiet, Amy could be unpredictable. Family members later recalled moments when her emotions ran deep and fast. Joy one moment, worry the next. There were times, they said, when she felt overwhelmed, cornered by life's pressures. When she picked Timothy up from school that morning in May 2011, no one, not even her closest friends, knew exactly what she was planning. But for those who knew her well, the trip she took him on felt both entirely in character and chillingly out of place. Amy loved spontaneous adventures. She also loved control. This trip seemed to be both. Jim Pitzen's life shattered in a matter of days. One morning he thought his son was at school, safe in his routine. By week's end he was standing in a police station, holding a missing person flyer with Timothy's face on it. In interviews, Jim's voice often catches when he describes that moment, the shock, the disbelief. He has described the years since as a daily fight to keep hope alive while battling the gnawing fear that the worst has already happened. The rest of Timothy's family has lived in that same painful limbo. Amy's mother, Timothy's grandmother, often speaks of him in the present tense. She believes her daughter left him alive, that whatever her reasoning, Amy's final act was not to harm her son. But that belief coexists with anguish. Not knowing where he is, not hearing his voice, not seeing his face grow older, it's a wound that never closes. What really happened? It began with a signature. At 8:10 a.m. on May 11, 2011, Amy Fry-Pitzen walked into Greenman Elementary School with a steady, almost rehearsed calm. She signed her son out for a family emergency. Timothy, likely confused but excited, followed her out into the sunlight, not knowing this would be the last time he would ever set foot in that school. The first stop was ordinary enough, dropping off her Ford Expedition for repairs. The mechanic remembered her smiling, chatting casually as though it was just another Wednesday. An employee gave them a ride to Brookfield Zoo. Their mother and son spent the afternoon surrounded by animals, snapping photos, eating snacks. Everything looked like a surprise day off, a treat. By late afternoon, they picked up the SUV and drove north to Gurnee, Illinois. Amy checked them into Key Lime Cove, an indoor water park hotel. Bright lights, splashing water, children laughing. It was the perfect setting for what appeared to be a spontaneous mini-vacation. Witnesses recall seeing Timothy running in the lobby, his mother trailing behind, smiling. The next morning, May 12, they hit the road again, this time heading further north to Wisconsin Dells. They checked into the Kalahari Resort, one of the largest indoor water parks in the country. Surveillance footage shows the pair at the front desk, Timothy standing close to Amy, holding onto her arm, his Spider-Man backpack slung over his shoulder. They spent the day at the park. No one saw tension between them. No one noticed anything strange. If Amy was troubled, she hid it well. That night, they stayed in their hotel room. The following morning, May 13th, cameras captured them again. This time checking out around 10 a.m. Amy appeared calm. Timothy looked tired but otherwise fine. From there the trail begins to shift. Amy made several phone calls to family members, telling them she and Timothy were fine. In one call to her mother-in-law, Timothy's voice could be heard faintly in the background saying, "I'm hungry." Those words, so simple and childlike, would later become haunting for those who loved him. After that, something changed. Later that afternoon, Amy was seen alone. Surveillance footage from a Family Dollar store showed her buying envelopes, a pen, and paper. Then she stopped at a gas station for snacks and drinks. Timothy was nowhere in sight. By 11:15 p.m., Amy checked into the Rockford Inn alone. No child. No explanation. Sometime between that last call in the afternoon and her appearance alone in Rockford, Timothy vanished from her company. Whether she left him with someone, handed him to strangers, or something far more disturbing happened, no one knows. The next morning, hotel staff knocked on her door. No answer. When they entered, they found Amy dead, an apparent suicide. Beside her, the note. Timothy is safe with people who love him and will care for him. You will never find him. There was no mention of where, no names, no numbers. Just that final promise, or threat, depending on how you read it. Outside the hotel room, the trail was already cold. The SUV she'd driven showed signs of being parked on a dirt road at some point, perhaps near a stream or secluded rural area. There was blood inside, later linked to a nosebleed Timothy had at some point, but no sign of injury, no clear evidence of harm. And so, the trip that began like a mother-son adventure ended in a dead woman's motel room and a missing child who seemed to vanish into thin air. It was a sequence of events that, when laid out in order, felt less like a vacation and more like a carefully staged farewell. From the moment Amy's body was found, the clock began ticking. Every missing child case is a race against time, and investigators knew the hours after a disappearance are the most critical. But in this case they were already too late. No one even realized Timothy was missing until his mother was gone. Police began retracing her steps, pulling surveillance footage from every hotel, gas station and store along the route. The videos told a partial story. Mother and son together for 2 days enjoying resorts and attractions. Then suddenly Amy alone. The gap between those two images became the central mystery. Search teams combed rural Illinois and Wisconsin, guided by GPS pings from Amy's phone and toll booth records from her SUV. They focused on areas where the vehicle appeared to have left paved roads, dirt paths, small parking areas near streams, remote forest edges. Nothing. The note she left both narrowed and widened the search. Timothy is safe, it claimed. You will never find him. If she was telling the truth, then he was alive, hidden deliberately. But if it was a misdirection, a final act to comfort herself or torment others, then every passing day could mean the difference between life and death. The pressure was immense. Detectives faced a flood of leads, each one tugging the case in a different direction. Friends of Amy recalled she had connections to people in Iowa, Wisconsin, and even further out. Others mentioned a vague link to a small religious community that valued secrecy. No one could prove a connection. Forensic teams examined Amy's SUV with painstaking care. Bits of dirt and plant matter stuck to the undercarriage suggested she had driven onto grassy rural terrain. Soil analysis hinted at locations near Sterling, Illinois, a region with sprawling farmland and countless secluded spots. It was like searching for a single grain of sand in a desert. Then came the false alarms. Over the years, multiple people claimed to have seen Timothy. A boy matching his description was spotted at a gas station. Another was seen at a park. In 2019, a teenager in Kentucky told police he was Timothy, claiming he had escaped from kidnappers. The story made national headlines, until DNA results crushed the hope. He was not Timothy, but a 23-year-old man with a criminal past. Each false lead carried its own emotional weight. Every time hope flared, it was followed by a crushing blow when the truth emerged. For the family, these moments were like reopening a wound that had never healed. Investigators also dug into Amy's mental state. They learned she had a history of depression, and friends said she feared losing custody of Timothy if her marriage ended. That fear, they believed, may have been a powerful motivator. But still, the core question remained. If she truly wanted to keep him from his father, where could she have placed him so successfully that no one, not even law enforcement, could find a trace in over a decade? Despite interviews, searches, and national coverage, the case began to stall. Without new evidence, they were left with a puzzle missing its most important piece, Timothy himself. And so, the file grew thicker while the trail grew colder. Yet even in the silence, one thing kept investigators going, the sense that somewhere, someone knows the truth. For years, the note Amy left was treated like a strange kind of anchor. It seemed to offer reassurance, Timothy is safe, yet in the same breath, it slammed the door shut with, you will never find him. It was both a promise and a threat, and depending on the day, investigators and family members read it one way or the other. But as the search stretched into months, then years, the darker interpretations began to creep in. Detectives started to weigh a possibility no one wanted to consider. What if Timothy was never placed with anyone? What if Amy's idea of safe was not the same as everyone else's? New details from forensic analysis fed that unease. Dirt found on the SUV matched areas near streams and secluded country roads, places isolated enough that a person could disappear without a witness. Inside the car, blood was discovered. It was later confirmed to be Timothy's, though attributed to a previous nosebleed. Still, its presence raised the temperature of every conversation in the case room. In most true crime stories, there comes a moment when the courtroom doors swing open and the public hears the verdict, guilty, not guilty, or some resolution in between. But in the case of Timothy Pitzen, there was no trial, no jury, no official conclusion. Instead, what remains is a legal and emotional void. Amy Fry-Pitzen's death closed any possibility of holding her accountable in a court of law. Without her, there was no defendant to prosecute, no sworn testimony to cross-examine. The only person who could explain exactly what happened to Timothy, where he is, who has him, or if anyone has him at all, took that information to the grave. For investigators, that meant the case stayed open but stagnant. It is still officially a missing person case, not a homicide, because no evidence has proven Timothy is deceased. That distinction matters in law enforcement files. It means resources are still allocated, tips are still processed, and the door to hope is never completely shut. This case is more than a mystery. It's a mirror reflecting the fragility of trust and the razor-thin line between protection and harm. Amy's final act will forever be debated. Was it the desperate decision of a mother convinced she was saving her son, or the irreversible choice of someone who let her own pain eclipse his future? For the Pitzen family, the years have been measured not by calendars, but by milestones missed. First days of school. Birthdays. The simple joy of watching a child grow taller, his voice change, his laughter deepen. Each one exists only in their imagination now. For law enforcement, this case is a constant reminder that sometimes the most disturbing crimes leave no fingerprints, just the absence of someone who should be here. And for the public, it's a lesson in the cruel weight of uncertainty. We are left with two truths that can coexist. 1. Timothy Pitzen is out there somewhere, alive, living a life far from what he once knew. 2. We may never know for sure.